Hello, I'm Erica Lutes with EducationUSA. I'm here today with James Minter, the Director of International Admissions at Columbia University in the city of New York. Thank you for being here today, James.
It's my pleasure. I'm very happy to be here today.
James, my job is to tell students a little about the international application process. If you could help us understand a little bit from Columbia's perspective.
All right.
We have American students living overseas and we have international students living overseas, of course. Could you tell us, how does Columbia define international in their admissions process?
Well, you've mentioned the very thing I like to mention as well. We define international very broadly because we think our international community is made up of students like all of those things you mentioned. There are Americans who live abroad, of course, the expatriate community. There are students who are in their third and fourth countries. So we think international is a community that can be defined in all of those ways. And we're glad to say that it's a significant percentage of our undergraduate student body. Students who come to us from the countries where they were born, students who come to us from the countries that are the third or fourth or fifth countries they may have lived in. So it is a wonderfully vibrant community for that very reason. And it most definitely includes Americans who come to us from outside the United States.
Fantastic. Speaking of Columbia, you are located in the city of New York.
We are.
Tell us about this vibrant city and how it contributes to student life.
New York likes to call itself the world's most international city, and I think that's fair as a New Yorker. New York, of course, offers our students wonderful resources in academics, in their in the arts, in their cultural pursuits, their recreational pursuits. New York starts as an extension of our classrooms. And students, when they study the components in our core curriculum that focus on visual arts or music, can use New York as an extension of those classrooms. So students use New York in a great variety of ways. We have wonderful internship programs that our students can make use of all over the city and in all kinds of industries, including the United Nations. One of our professors, who's a former New York City mayor, calls New York a gorgeous mosaic, and I think that's a lovely image that we use on our own campus as well for our student community, certainly for our international community, because in a mosaic, every individual piece is recognizable, but when you step back and look at the picture that they form together, it's greater than the sum of its parts. So I love that image for Columbia and certainly for New York City, my adopted home.
So good for internships, good for student life.
Very much so.
Could you tell us a little bit about the application process
Yes.
for an international student? Now, as you know, it's certainly a little bit more challenging to navigate that process if you're an international student. Are there any special elements or any tips that you might be able to provide for students and parents interested in applying to Columbia and other universities in the United States?
Well, I hope if they can that they will take the opportunity to visit campuses in the United States, because often international students can get an especially strong picture of a school by visiting it and seeing for themselves what an American college campus is like. Because certainly American college campuses tend to be much more extensively residential. They tend to be livelier places where students are enjoying the full breadth of a college's experiences and not just academic life. So we love for international students and families to visit us on campus. What's important to us for our international applicants is that they understand that we certainly take all of our candidates in context. When students apply to us from overseas, from the British system, the French system, the Belgian system, the German system, any of those, we do take great care to make sure that we understand how a student is distinguishing him or herself within that context, and not expecting a student to conform to some arbitrary US norm. We indeed look at every student's academic background carefully, that we look for a student to distinguish him or herself in that academic background. We also, of course, look for support from a student's school and from his or her teachers. And yes, we do also look at US standardized testing, but again, in context. We know that that testing format is one that students overseas may not be so familiar with, so we don't set any kind of arbitrary standard which they must meet. We take all of a student's academic credentials together as a package, and then of course we also look extensively at how every student presents him or herself to us, and we hope that a student will take the opportunity to gain a level of self-awareness, and also to gain a level of insight into Columbia so a student can make an articulate and insightful argument. I think Columbia and I are a wonderful combination because, and let the student put the rest of that in his or her own words.
That's great to know. I know a lot of students worry about not having a GPA, a grade point average, not having a preparation like American students for standardized testing. So I'm glad to hear that, the class rank, etc.
Exactly.
Could you tell us a little bit about the financial aid process? Of course, a very hot topic with the prices today of U.S. American education. Could you tell us a little bit about how Americans or non-Americans are treated in that process?
Yes. Well, we understand that Columbia is an expensive place to go to school. The United States finances higher education in a very different way from many other countries, and so the private and most prominent of America's colleges are often very expensive places. But we're also the places with the greatest resources to offer our students financial aid, so we're very happy to be able to do that, to put together the kind of multicultural community that's so important to us. When students apply to Columbia from anywhere in the world, if they are U.S. citizens or permanent residents, then the fact that they might need financial aid is utterly irrelevant in the admissions process. That's need-blind admissions. Students who are not U.S. citizens and who need financial aid, we must also consider that need as part of the evaluation process, because while our budget for helping foreign students with financial aid is very large, it's not unlimited. And so we do have to take that into account. We will make our choice of several dozen of the most appealing foreign students who will need financial aid. And of course, any student admitted to us, whether foreign or American, from anywhere in the world, receives a financial aid package that meets that student and family's full demonstrated need for assistance towards the cost of attending Columbia.
So you would receive your letter of admission perhaps in March, April?
Late March, exactly.
And then together would you receive
And the offer of financial aid will come with it if we have had all of the information we need to make that determination, as we certainly would encourage students to provide, so that we have that information when we can make the offer of admission.
And then in turn, the student and parent can then decide if they would like to accept the offer or not by perhaps
May
1st.
Yes, May 1st is the standard candidate reply date, we call it, among Columbia and all of our peer institutions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here today, James. I think I've learned a lot about the process.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for having me. It's been delightful for me to be in Brussels.
Well, thank you, and we look forward to seeing you next time on Education USA TV.